I cut yesterday's Multiverse of Truth video short. I have some more thoughts following that Bulls-Lakers game. Yeah, I did watch that game, and I also watched the Warriors game. And while Steph Curry certainly has his flaws, what he does and how short-handed that team is, and the work he has to put in to accomplish what he accomplishes, compared to LeBron James, who might as well be getting pushed around in a wheelchair out there and then people handing him the ball so that he can take an open shot. The All-Star game voting just makes me want to puke. Just makes me want to fucking puke. And watching Anthony Davis and the difference that he makes on the court, and he made the All-Star team, I get it, but look at his player ranking. Look at the fan ranking. Look at the media ranking compared to LeBron James, while AD carries LeBron James. And I understand that AD made this bed. You know, he chose to go to LA with LeBron. Consequences, right? But it can't feel good. In terms of history, for the people that pay attention to the small details, you know, he's not going to be an all-star starter X number of times in his career. Steph Curry as well. LeBron will be. So like so many things in the NBA now, you have to question the validity or the value of racking up all-star appearances or all-NBA appearances. Did he really deserve these appearances, or is it so you can have headlines like this and so that you can have these historic monuments and say, look, no one else has had this many all-star appearances, and that type of shit will work on your casual fan. You know, they gave LeBron an all-NBA appearance last year. I guess it was third team, but still, in the history books, they're going to look and be like, oh, yep, X number of times, all-NBA. Shit, he didn't deserve to be in the NBA at all. Hell, he barely was. He only played 55 games. He was consistently one of the worst shooters in the league. He led the league in turnovers again. But hey, let's put him on the all-NBA team. Let's talk about Anthony Davis again for a second. Because Anthony Davis gets crazy scrutiny while playing really well because he's on the Lakers. While there are centers throughout this league that are just atrocious who escape that sort of criticism. And I had Chris Broussard mention in yesterday's video, what could Anthony Davis and Steph Curry do together? How much better would both of their legacies end up being if AD had an unselfish player like Steph with Steph's skills? If Steph had a big man who could actually carry the load every now and then. Now, at least Anthony Davis and Steph Curry made the All-Star list, but when you see that LeBron James is a starter and a captain, it makes it all just unbearable. I could buy that Steph isn't a starter. I could buy that Anthony Davis isn't a starter, you know, when you have the likes of Jokic to compete against. But LeBron James as a starter? And people often ask in the comments, why don't players say something? Aren't they fed up with LeBron's antics, all of his cheating, all of his ridiculous calls, all of his pouting and his whining and his unfair treatment? Well, apparently, I have a hard time believing this. Apparently, players voted for LeBron James and voted heavily for him. That's according to what the NBA is showing, at least, when they combine player voting, fan voting, and media voting to get the weighted score. LeBron James gets a player ranking of 2. Anthony Davis got a player rank of 5. Steph Curry is only a 3. We know how silly, brainwashed, and fickle the LeBron fans are, so I'm not even going to acknowledge that. And we know that the media is the La Media. So that only makes the player voting interesting to me. I guess you can find out who voted and who voted for who. So maybe the players are afraid even there not to vote against LeBron James. I don't know. You tell me, what the hell? Those of you who watch my channel know that LeBron doesn't pass the eye test, with him just standing there with his arms to his side on defense or getting blown by like in this clip. But hey, now he's in talks for Defensive Player of the Year, right? Just another way the media makes us not take the NBA seriously anymore. What are his other assets that are making him an all-star this year? His wide open shots, his undeserved free throws, his bailout and ones. Maybe it's all that douchey shrugging, his wonderful leadership on the floor that makes him an all-star. And of course, they didn't show a replay of this from another angle. Why? Because he was flailing. Those are the things that are hard to see reflected in a box score, but his statistics don't add up to him being in the All-Star game either. Anthony Davis is still a season leader in 2 major categories. And he has been all season. And I've mentioned this before. LeBron James is not in a single one, unless you want to count that he's 8th in the entire league in turnovers. And bear in mind, that's less than 1 per game than the league leader. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. You got a guy who did this all throughout that Bulls game. And look, I mean, every single game. You can imagine, if you were me, how you would get tired of this. I thought maybe it would be an interesting challenge to put together all of LeBron's whining and complaining and flopping, but it's overwhelming. It's every single game. It's not like going through a career and trying to find evidence. There's too much per game. As I said in yesterday's video, the only reason the Bulls got this down to single digits is because LeBron played all 12 minutes of the fourth and pulled this shit the whole fourth. And watch how this classic guy ends the game. He's done. Walking away like a kid, like a child, like a 2-year-old. He doesn't, all he cares about, look at it, he looks like a toy that's breaking down. This is who's being chosen to be in All-Star games. This is the type of person we call an all-star. This guy's why the NBA sucks, and why all those kids at home watching go out on the court and stink it up for the rest of us that actually wanted to play basketball. Punk-ass bitches, all of you. So all it required for me to prove that LeBron James isn't an all-star is to look at his most recent game. Those of you who didn't watch yesterday's video, this is like a part 2. I'm starting midway through. I'm showing some of his other antics. Yesterday we broke down how he came in 7th in shooting percentage on his team. You don't need to look at his shooting. You don't need to look at his points and try and pretend that that's why he deserves it, because he doesn't. 4 rebounds, 5 turnovers, and all the antics that I just showed. Anyway, you get it. Or you don't. And if you don't, you never will.